All righty, well, good morning. Now,
Morning.
this is going to be a workshop. It's going to be about an hour long. Although, if you have questions when we reach the end, I will stay on with you and answer questions, as many as I can. That is not a problem. My normal class that I teach live and in person is about 2 hours long. So this will be an abbreviated look at Transaction Desk. We're not going to poke into every single nook and cranny. What we're going to do is walk through the wizard and create a new transaction. Now, how many of you have already used Transaction Desk in a real situation? You've gone in and set up a listing or a contract. I see you did. What's your first name again, Karen?
Patrick?
Patrick, that's right. Because you were, I knew it was one of two people. So yeah, that's Patrick. It's not Karen, but all righty. We're going to walk through a listing file when we set this up, not for any particular reason, except listing paperwork tends to be a little simpler and we can go through it a little bit more quickly. So I am going to put a screen up right now. And let's see. And so can you all see the MLS screen over here, the clarity screen with my mouse moving around on top of it?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
All righty. So I'll make this bigger. Does that look any better?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's
All
good.
right. And so, of course, we can get into Transaction Desk just by going here directly into Transaction Desk. And I'm going to go in through the MLS first, because that is where most of us tend to use it. And we generally go in from a property. So I see there's one new listing this morning in Hanover so far. And all the way over here on the right, you see these little tiny letters TD. Most of you probably know what that does, but that will take the information from this listing and start bringing it over into a new transaction for you and set it up for you somewhat automatically. We're not going to do that today because I figure if I show you how to do everything manually, then doing the automated stuff is fairly easy. Also, if I go to the listing itself, underneath the picture here, you see that same TD. And by the way, I'm looking off to the side because I have a separate screen over here for doing this, but I want to be able to see all of you folks while we're doing this at the same time. So this is a good feature, but you want to be a little careful with it when you bring information over from a listing that's already in the MLS and it comes over into your transaction. Whose data is it now? Whose information is it now?
Mine.
Yours. And so even though you're bringing this information over, you still need to look at every single form in your transaction, every single place in your form in your transaction to make sure it is correct, that you didn't inherit someone else's information that isn't correct, or you inherited information that may have changed. So feel free to use it once you get familiar with the system, but make sure you always check everything, because how perfect does your information and your paperwork need to be?
Perfect.
It does, especially if you're going to put something in front of someone to sign and you do hope they will one day give you money. The other places that you can get into Transaction Desk is under the additional resources. There's a Transaction Desk link here, and under the links tab at the top, if I drop this list down, there's a Transaction Desk link here, and I'm going to click on that, and we are now going into Transaction Desk. And by the way, feel free to ask questions and such. I will be happy to try to answer them as we go along, as long as we can try to stay within our 1 hour time frame. Now, my first question here, is that large enough on your screen to see well enough?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Okay, everybody seems to be okay with it. Second thing is, When you get here on your computer, you may notice your screen doesn't look exactly like mine. That's because this screen is customizable. And so if I click the little padlock thing at the top here, there are things I can add to this screen when I go in. Some of these things can be moved around and rearranged, and I've set it up with the things that I like to have for how I use it, which of course is primarily training. And then once you have it set up, click the lock, and then it won't go away and you can't accidentally move stuff. Now, if you have a piece of paper, and some of you have taken my class before, so you'll remember this, I want you to write down the words hamburgers and onions. Some of you know what I already mean by that, but what I want you to notice in the upper left-hand corner here, 3 horizontal green lines, looks just like a hamburger, doesn't it? It would more if this was 11:30 or so. But if I click on it, hamburgers open up side menus. And when we get into the transaction, I'll let you know what the onions are. It's pretty lame, but so far when I've used this illustration, everybody remembers it because the illustration is so corny. And so these are all the components of Instinet and TransactionDesk. And in the full class, I go over these in a great deal more detail. We're not going to do that today, but what I will say is TransactionDesk takes into account all of these things. Ooh, we have a new student. Liz will be coming on board in a minute. Great. And so Authentisign is electronic signatures. You can use it all by itself, or when you create a transaction, you can use it in your transaction, obviously, to get things signed. Instinet Forms is where all the individual forms live. And you can go there and work just with one form at a time. And if you're just getting started with TransactionDesk, this is actually the best place to start. In fact, the homework I give you if you're just getting started is go into Instinet Forms, find a listing agreement, fill it out, make sure you can print it, make sure you can email it to yourself, and then go back and do the same thing with a purchase agreement. And if you're so new that you haven't done it before, take it to your sales manager and say, I never filled one of these out before. I took a shot at it. How did I do? Your sales manager will love you for doing that. They want to do whatever they can to make sure you know how to do this, because if you think about it, the most important of the documents, and I am clicking on something here to make it bigger, but the most important of the tools and documents is learning how to use the purchase agreement and learning how to use the listing agreement. And you cannot practice too much.
John, do I have a question? Do we need to label when we do a practice agreement from an actual listing? Do we need to label it sample or something that's not out there where somebody could
Well,
mistake
nobody
it?
can see your stuff. That's the next thing I was going to mention about practice. I've had people say they're afraid to practice in here because they're afraid they'll do something wrong and get in trouble. Nobody's paying attention. You can practice as much as you want. The only time anybody would see it is if you deliberately send it to somebody, and there are no rules against practicing. In fact, the only 2 parts of our system throughout the entire MLS that you're not allowed to practice is you're not allowed to practice putting listings into the MLS because they frown on fake listings in the MLS, you can imagine. And you're not allowed to practice making appointments for showings because agents get mad if you try to schedule an appointment and it's fake, you were just trying it out. Pretty much everything else you do in the MLS, Instinet, and every other part of it, you can go in and practice as much as you want. And in fact, you should. You want to know the basics of doing all this stuff before you are working with a live customer who already thinks that you already know how to do this stuff. So Liz, can you hear any of us?
Yes.
Okay, in the lower left-hand corner of your screen is a button you can click on to turn on video for yourself so that everybody
Yes.
can see you.
Yeah,
And
I am
Noel, I
not.
will tell you, your ceiling is beautiful if that's the only thing that you wanted us to be able to see. So let's move on here. I am going to click here where mine says create a transaction. There's more than one place you can do that. I already mentioned to you that from in a listing in the MLS, and I showed you the little TD, you can click and that will open up a brand new transaction and actually start bringing information over. We're going to do it manually today. I have a widget here that shows me all of my transactions. If I click on Go to Transactions, there's a place there where I can start by creating a new transaction. And there are actually 3 or 4 other places in here where you can start creating a transaction. I like using this widget, so I put it on my main desktop, and I'm going to click on Create a Transaction. Now, can you all see this screen here where it says close and create and all of that? And I'm only asking because I've had once or twice where a window popped up and somebody couldn't see it. So everyone nod.
Yes.
All right, good. So we haven't started the wizard. We're creating the wizard to set up this new transaction. And the first thing you want to go do is give it a name. This goes back to your question a little bit, Brenda. You are allowed to name it anything you want. There's no rules. It's entirely up to you. What you want to do is name it something that tells you who it's for and what it is. Now, one other confusion I've had occasionally, Instinet Transaction Desk calls everything a transaction. We are going to set up a listing file. Instinet will still call it a transaction. It's just the word they use. I've had some people say, well, I can't do my listings in there because it's not a transaction. Best I can tell you is they're being hopeful. They know all your listings are going to turn into a transaction at some point, right?
Right.
But that's just the term they use. So we're going to create a listing file. And so I'll go here and let's see, who will we do? Who haven't I done in a long time? How about Paul McCartney's house? It's my listing file. You can call it whatever you want. Any questions about naming procedures?
Nope.
And then the next thing that I teach this class in other offices, and they love it because you have something a lot of those other offices don't. How many of you know that in our offices you have those packets, paper packets? One is everything you need to set up a listing, and the other is everything you need to set up a new contract. They're in the office and you can go get them. In fact, if you haven't gotten one, next time you're in the office legally, of course, grab one for yourself. It has everything in it. And even if you don't use that paper, it's a good reference for you to have handy. Well, I've created both of those packets here for everyone in the company. The new listing packet and the new resale purchase agreement packet. And you can just click on these and it will literally bring over all the same forms that are in that physical packet. So we are going to click on residential resale new listing packet. I've selected that. And the nice thing is it's also going to start filling it out with some of the information that we're going to add. Now, if you've never used these packets, then you know you've gone through this before, you know you can get to that part of the process and add all the forms individually. But this is a nice shortcut and it will save you a lot of work and a lot of time. The next box, remember we could bring information over from the MLS? You still can. If you didn't click on that and you decide now you want to do it, you can click on MLS and put in the listing information, the MLS number, and it'll bring it over now. The other option that you have here is tax records. And I actually like using the tax record one because while I could inherit someone's wrong information from the MLS and I have to check it carefully, tax record, for the most part, tends to be fairly accurate, and I'm comfortable with it, but you still want to check all the information. We're not going to click on either of those today. And by the way, you can only do one or the other. You can't do both. And then you decide what role you're going to play. You can be the listing agent or the selling agent, depending upon what you're doing. And you can be neither if you're an unlicensed assistant or a team administrator or something like that. You might check that one. Or everyone's favorite, you can be both. Try to do that on contracts as often as you possibly can for the rest of your real estate career. You will enjoy it. We're going to be the listing agent. And this box here, Use Wizard, I recommend you always leave it checked. I know this system well enough that I probably don't have to use the wizard. In fact, I know I don't have to use the wizard to set up a new file. But it's convenient. It walks me through all the steps, and if your process is routine, you make fewer mistakes. So I recommend just use the wizard every time you set up a new file anyway, even once you get very, very familiar with it. So any questions on the setup screen?
Nope.
All right. So we'll click on Create, and it's going to get those forms that I selected. And it's opening up in a new transaction screen. And there are 5 steps to setting up a new transaction. That's how the wizard works. And we are on step 1, which is the details. And basically all you do is fill out the blanks. Now, you only fill out the blanks that you have information for. Again, I've had some folks say, well, I can't use that screen. I don't have all that information. That's okay. This product is used all across the country. They have over 1 million users. Not everybody does everything the same way in every part of the country. And there are things on this list that we don't even use. So just put in as much information as you have. I'm going to go ahead and put in a street number. And we'll do 8250. And by the way, what belongs in the street number box?
Just the number.
Just the number. Yeah, I can't tell you how many times in front of a class I've tried typing the whole address and totally embarrassed myself. And I'll do Bama Drive because that's where my friend lives. And that's here in Mechanicsville and Virginia. And 23111, and you can tab through the form like I just did. It saves time. So you fill out the information that you have. And this is my friend's house. I don't want him to move because he lives not too far from me. So I'm going to list his house for $20 million. And then we'll reduce it $1,000 a month until it sells. So that should keep him around for a while, you know. So you fill out whatever information you have, and then all wizards work the same way. You finish with the screen, you look for any button that says next or continue, and you click on it. And of course, when you are out of next buttons, you are finished. And that's why I like wizards. But there are 3 fields on the top here that I want to point out to you. 2 of them aren't terribly useful. One of them, if you're going to start using this, like I hope you will on a regular basis, is very useful. The first one, transaction type, is not all that useful yet. You can use it, but it won't really do anything for you. We have a template for bringing over forms. Down the road, you can set up your own templates with not only all the forms, but all the people you work with and other documents and scheduling things and assign them to different property types and bring a whole lot of stuff over. I know 2 people who do that in other companies. I still hate them, but you know, it takes a lot of setup work. So this doesn't do a whole lot, but I wanted you to know what it does. And the same thing with property type here. you can mark these because it's recording that it's, in this case, a residential sale or a residential lease. Is residential lease on here? Yes, it is. The one that you do want to use and you want to discipline yourself to use is transaction status, just like you do in the MLS. Because if you start using this regularly, you're going to get a lot of files. We just had one agent transfer from one of our offices to another one of our offices. It's more convenient for them. And when I moved their files over to them in the new office, they had 650 transaction files in here. So you want to assign statuses to your files, and you want to go in and update those files as they change. And you can use your own system here. You can even add things under settings over here on the left-hand side under the hamburger. You can go in and add things to these lists. For example, if I have a contract that fails, I use the term that it fell through. That wasn't on the list, so I added it. I tend to use active if it's a listing, brand new listing, and I tend to use open if it's a contract. So I would use those terms. You can use any ones that you want, but you will find a year or two from now, if you have been faithful in using this, then organizing your files and finding them is a lot easier to do. So does that make sense? So I'm going to make this active because it's a listing. I've filled out everything I'm going to fill out for now. Any questions on this screen?
Yeah.
All right, then we'll click on the next button. And now we're on transaction dates. I will tell you, don't spend a lot of time on this one. There are dates for things on here we don't necessarily use, and they don't all automatically put information into your paperwork. And the only place you can see them, if you wanted to use it to mark some dates as a reminder, is to go here and look at them. There's no way it sends you a reminder email or anything like that. That would be nice. Since we're doing a listing, I am going to find expiration date. And if I click here, I get a calendar. And I'm going to make this expire on May 31st at the end of the month. That's one of the dates that I know will come over into my listing paperwork because I've experimented with it. But you can set the dates, just don't spend a whole lot of time here. It doesn't do that much. It's the next steps that are the truly valuable ones. So any questions about dates?
Nope.
All right. That was well said there, Kyle. I like that. Thank you. And so now we are on one of the places you want to spend more time on. We're going to add all the people. Now, to add people, notice I'm already here. I picked myself as the listing agent when we did the setup, so it knew who I was and it knew who I worked for. To add people, you go to the very hard to find little blue add plus sign here that should have been a big bright red button, or the first time I tried to use this 5 years ago, I wouldn't have spent 10 minutes looking for it, button. I say that because I'm still bitter about it. You can tell, right? So you'll never forget where it is from now on. Now, the question, though, that I want to ask you, and now you get to interact a little bit more, I know it's still early in the morning, is who do I need to add to this file at this point? Well, we're doing a listing.
Owner?
Yeah, an owner or a seller. I'm going to need a seller.
Yeah.
But I want to make a suggestion to you in terms of saving work and time, especially if this is a contract, a purchase agreement rather than a listing agreement. I want you to take a moment, sip your coffee, and ask yourself, during the life of this file, who's probably going to need something from it? Who's going to touch it? And so in this case, I'm going to need a seller. So I'll click on add, and I can create a new contact. I can add an existing contact. There's a little checkbox when you add people that adds them to the database that's in here, the contact database. And everybody that you do this with, you hope will sign lots of things for you over the years, right? Sell houses, buy houses, do all sorts of things. So you want to add them to there so that you always have them available. You can add yourself. I'm already here because I told the software what I was going to be doing, which was being a listing agent. But I could add a contact from Google. I believe this will look at your Gmail address book, and add a contact from Realtor List. If I were doing a contract, I could add the other agent who's going to be in on that contract. Just by clicking here, the system already has all their information. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new transaction contact. And the asterisks are required, but email is also considered a required field as well. Because the whole point of this is doing everything electronically, and email is the way you're going to communicate electronically. So I'll make a type here. This is my seller, and his first name, if you remember, is Paul, and last name is McCartney, and his email address will be I can't type this morning. There we go. Now, let me give you a little admonition here. I want you to practice. I want you to go in here today and create 3 or 4 fake transactions and hook up with somebody else to be your seller or your buyer, or go back and forth. When you do that, don't make up fake email addresses for your fake person like I did. I actually have a kind of email that lets me do that on the fly, and it's great for training. But if you make up a fake email for somebody and email it, it might be somebody's email for real, and you will terrify them when you send them things that they think they're supposed to sign. Fair deal? So I've got Paul's information in here. Preferred signature, preferred initials, legal name. This is often used for things like executor for the estate of, a power of attorney for, CEO signing on behalf of, things like that that need to be added. I'm going to go ahead and click on save. And now I've added my seller. But remember I said, think about who's going to be involved in this file. And for a moment, let's make believe this is a purchase agreement rather than a listing file. If I know who the mortgage guy is going to be, I should add them at this point, or the mortgage lady. If I know who the inspector is going to be, I could add them at this point. If I know who the appraiser is going to be, I could add them. If I know who the title person is going to be, or the closing agent is going to be, I can add him or her. Add everybody you can think of at this point, because it will save you time and work later. You can always add people later. You can always take people out who did not turn out to be the person, but add as many folks as you can. So I'm going to go here to my plus sign that is no longer so hard to find. And I'm going to add an existing contact because I know Paul's attorney and he wants a copy of this when all is done. And Paul's attorney is named Dewey. Some of you know this guy because you've been in my class before. And there he is, Dewey Shaftham, the lawyer guy of Dewey, Shaftham, and Howe. And yes, that is a lawyer joke. My brother is a lawyer and I collect them. They're good for his personal development. And so I will save him. I've added him. And I can now CC him on all of the paperwork. I can send him copies. I can copy him as a CC in any signing sessions. And so think about everybody that you need to add and get them in here at this point. It will save you time. One of the people you might add is your office agent services coordinator, and then you could send them all the paperwork right from this. There's a thought. So, any questions about adding contacts?
No.
All right. So we'll click on the next button. Now, these forms are the forms that I automatically brought over when I used the template at the beginning of the process. You do have the little plus sign up here that you can add forms, and if you're not using the template, you'd have to go there and find all the forms that you want. Or you might just be using a few forms for a specific situation. Now, remember I told you about the hamburgers? Yeah, everybody can grimace. These are the pearl onions. Best we could come up with to keep the analogy going. If hamburgers open side menus, pearl onions open things that you can do with each one of these forms. So for example, here's the lead-based paint disclosure and brochure. This house was built in 1990. Do I need them?
Nope.
So if I want to keep my file tidy, I can go here, click on delete, say yes, and remove both of those. On the other hand, maybe this is going to be a coming soon listing. We're still talking about it. So I can go here to add, and I can go to listing agreements and related forms. There's the coming soon addendum. And so I can check that off, click on add, and now I've added the coming soon addendum into my folder, and there it is down there. So you can use this screen to make sure you have the forms that you need, get rid of any forms that you don't need if you like to keep your files nice and tidy, although there's nothing wrong with leaving there, they just are there, and get your files set up. There's one other thing that you can do here, or you can wait till the end of the whole process. And that is, you can also fill your forms out at this point. You can fill them out here, or you can just use this step of the wizard to gather all your forms into your file, and you can wait till the end and go in and fill them out there. You have to do it in that place or this place, and whatever is easiest for you is the way that you should do it. I would probably tend to fill them out here. How many of you think that this wizard is a very convenient way of doing all of your paperwork and will save you a lot of time getting your file set up?
No question.
I would disagree with that assessment.
Really?
I would. And here's why. You still have to look at every single piece of information. Some information has already come over from information that I've put in, but your paperwork has to be perfect. So yeah, I guess it's more convenient, but it isn't necessarily going to be faster, but it is going to be better. If nothing else, it's going to be legible, and that's important when you put stuff in front of folks as well. So whether you do it here or whether you do it at the end, here's the way it works. You can click on each one of these one at a time and they will open up. I'm going to click on the residential listing agreement and it will open up. And you can see some of the information is already here. And so I can go ahead and begin filling out additional information. And I'm not going to fill out the entire listing agreement. And there's the street address, tax parcel ID. One of the things I recommend on each form with this much to do, especially the listing and the purchase agreement, is click on one of the first fields and then tab your way through the form. It might take a little bit longer, but you won't miss a spot or a checkbox that needs to be checked. Get all the way through the process, get ready to send it to somebody to sign, and find out you have to go back and fix it. Very frustrating. So I recommend tabbing through the form, especially when there are a lot of spaces. So you go ahead and fill it out, and we'll just assume I have. And up here at the top, under File, you have a bunch of options. I can save it. Now, there is an autosave in here. I don't always trust autosaves. I'm a belt and suspenders person. So if I were doing this for real, I probably would click on save periodically just to be safe, especially after I finished filling out a form. You also have a save as PDF. That will save it to your computer, but understand something. It will no longer be fill-outable. It's only fill-outable as a form inside Instanet and TransactionDesk. But if you need to save a copy somewhere, you can. And you have print down here. You want to make sure you can print to whatever computer you're working at and make sure you're set up for it. And under send is where you can email them. Make sure you can email something to yourself, not only so that you know it works, but so that you know what it looks like when your customer gets it, so that when they call you and say, I'm not sure how to use this, can you walk me through it? You'll have already seen one before, so you'll be able to help them. Does that make sense? So here's what I want you to do. At the bottom, when you're done filling out the form, you click on exit, and it closes this form and it saves it, and now you're back at the list. So the way this works for you is you click, you fill out, you save, you exit. You click, fill out, save, exit. You click, fill out, save, exit. Yeah, you should have a nice large cup of coffee for this part and maybe a box of Krispy Kreme donuts to get through it. But check every document, check every space. This is one of the most important parts of the process. That's why I say it's better, it's easier, it's cleaner. It's not necessarily time saving. You don't rush through this part. It's just too important. Any questions about this step? We're doing pretty good. We're pretty much right on schedule here. All righty then. I am going to click on next, and we are now in documents. This is actually also over on this side menu. You see where it says DocBox. DocBox is unlimited online storage, just like some of the other cloud storages like Dropbox and iCloud and Google Drive and all of those. And whenever you create a transaction, it creates a folder for it where all your stuff goes. This is your folder. This is the same as that folder that you keep, that you carry with you or have at your desk. That is your working folder for the life of the listing or the life of the contract. What belongs in this folder if you're going to try to go online as completely as you can? And it starts with an E and it ends with a thing, and it's everything. If you want to take the best advantage of TransactionDesk and be online as much as you possibly can, then you want to get in the habit of putting everything that would normally go into your folder or the office folder in here. Once it's in here, you can access it from any internet connected device on the planet. You can access it from your computer. You can access it from an office computer. You can access it from your phone, from your tablet, from your customer's computer, from your customer's phone if you need, and you're with them and you need to go find a document and you didn't charge your battery on yours. So you want to get in the habit of not putting a piece of paper into your physical folder or down on your desk until you've added it to this folder. When you fill out the forms and get them all done and get them signed, or you save them because they're finished and they don't have to be signed, and you save them as a PDF, they go into this folder automatically as well. So you want to make that a habit. The good news is they've given you lots and lots of ways to do that. So if I go up here and click on the hard to find little add button, I have 4 ways of adding stuff. Now don't click on this first one because I did about 10 times when I first used it until I realized I was already here.
Pour me a cup.
Oh, there you are, Brenda. And I have 2 choices. If I have something that I need to add to this that I've already saved on my desktop, you got a document from a customer or somebody, the other agent sent you a copy of some paperwork for your file, and it came to you as an email attachment and you saved it on your desktop, then you can just, and I'm going to my desktop, just give me a minute here to see something. You can just grab that, bring it over to that blue area and drop it in, and now it's in your folder. So if you save it to your desktop, you can drag it over. Now, if you didn't save it to your desktop, but you're one of those real organized people who have folders on your computer for everything, and so you can pull it from a folder, instead of dragging and dropping, I can click here and it will take me to where I keep stuff on my computer. And I'll go here and grab a document, click on open, and now I've added that. So if it's on your computer, you can drag it there and it just goes right in, or you can navigate to where you keep stuff on your computer, your My Documents folder, or wherever you keep it, and add it to this folder, and now it's in here, and now you can access it from anywhere in the world. That's the first way. Second way is other transactions. Remember I said whenever you create a transaction in here, whether it's a listing or a purchase agreement, it creates a documents Dropbox folder for that. So maybe you've worked with this property before. Maybe you've worked with this customer before. Maybe you have a folder somewhere in here with lots of stuff in it, and you need something from that folder that you want to bring over into this one. If I click here and I go to my transaction folder link, here are all of my transactions. And so hopefully I'll pick one here that has something in it. I did not pick one that has something in it. Let's try something else here. And I hope this doesn't happen too many times, but for me, it always seems to. Here we go. This one has a picture in it. So I can click on that, check it off, click on save, and now I've added that picture. In fact, you could keep all your listing pictures in here, couldn't you? And then you could access them from anywhere, anytime that you need them. Somebody says they need a picture of that listing and you've only got your phone. You could go here and grab that picture and send it out, or send it to somebody you're doing some advertising with. So you can put everything that's related to your listing, everything that's related to your contract in here. 2 more ways of doing it. You have cloud drives. Most of us do now. I have a Dropbox account that I keep all kinds of stuff in. There's Google Drive, OneDrive, iBox. These are the only ones it supports right now, but maybe you keep your marketing materials in there, the things that you send to lots of people a lot of the time, and you want to add them to your folder. You can go to one of your cloud drives and just pull that information down and into your file folder here as well. But the last one is my favorite. This one here looks like an email icon because that's what it is. And let me show you what this does. This is the coolest thing since plaid socks. I'm going to click on it. And can everybody see the screen? Because this is important.
Yes.
It created an email address. This is a unique email address for just this transaction, just this file. Anything that I send to that email address automatically goes into this folder. And if it's an email with an attachment, it saves both the email and the attachment as 2 separate things. So you know how, for example, you're supposed to save every relevant communication that you have for any transaction, and I'm sure you all have gotten in the habit of printing those emails out so that you put them in your file folder like you're supposed to, right? Everyone nod, even if you're lying, it's okay. Well, this will do that for you automatically, which is a great feature. However, there's a problem. First of all, how many of you think you can memorize that email address for each one of your transactions? I didn't think so. Now you can highlight it and then you can copy and paste it. So if you're on your computer, I could copy it into an email and send myself something. But I'm already on my computer. Probably whatever I wanted to send is already on my computer and I could just drag and drop it and bring it over. If I were to click on open in email client, an email client is whatever software you use on your computer to manage your email. And so I use Outlook. If I were to click on that, it would open up a brand new email in my Outlook with that as the email address, which sounds pretty cool at first, except I'm still on my computer. I could have done that myself, couldn't I? Here's what I want you to do with this. I want you, every time you create a new transaction, whether it's a listing or a purchase agreement, I want you in step 5 to click on that, find this email address, highlight it, and copy it. Then I want you to go to your email and create a contact for this transaction. With that as the email address, and you give it whatever name you want. If you're using the address of the property, the first name could be 8250. The last name could be Spicewood Court. And just save it as a contact. From then on, every time you get an email that you need to put in here, all you do is forward that email to that contact. You don't even have to be in TransactionDesk. You don't even have to be on your computer. You can do it from your phone or your tablet. And everything you forward to that email, to that contact, will automatically go into this folder. And next time you log in to look at your transaction, it will be there. The attachment will be there, and the email with its message will be there, and you'll have recorded everything. How cool is that? And you want to do that every single time. Kyle, do you have a question? You just like that idea? Yeah, so do I. It's one of the most useful tools in here that not too many people know exist, unless you take classes like this. They are working on a way to do it with your texts as well, so that you can forward text to it, but I haven't seen that. It is coming. And then remember, once you're done with that file, once it's finished, you want to delete that contact, because if you work with that person again, the email address will be a whole new email. So how does that sound? Lots of different ways to get stuff in here. And I would show it to you, but I have found that it can take 10 minutes or so when you use it to process all the way through your email system, their email system, and get into your file. So those are all the different ways that you can make sure everything in your physical file folder goes into your electronic file folder so that you can be online as much as you possibly can. Any questions? Yes,
Yeah,
Brett.
John, so you said highlight the email and save it into that contacts list that I set up for the transaction itself?
No, in your own personal email. The
Okay.
email you use every day, your hometown email or whatever you use for business.
Okay.
That's the email you want to do it in. Good question. Thank you for making that clear. I appreciate that. Anyone else have any other questions about this part? All righty, then we're out of next buttons. What do we click on?
Finish. Done.
Done.
Done, yeah. I love wizards. They just make life simple for all of us. And so we have created the transaction. And first of all, these widgets are all of the parts basically that we went through. So the details overview is where I put all that information on the first screen. If I need to go back and add some information, I can just click on Go to Details, and it will open up that screen, and I can fill out additional information right from there. To get back to the previous screen, we now have a new hamburger on this side, don't we? Side menus. And that first screen is called the dashboard. So if I click on dashboard, I'm back here again. If I need to go get a form and fill it out and add it, I can click on Go to Forms here, or I can click on the plus sign here, or I can click on Forms here. They all take you to the same place. Use the one that you remember the fastest and just make it a habit. Contacts, all my people here. I can go to contacts. I can click on the plus sign. If I have a new person, I just found out, you know, who's going to do some repair work on this house before it finishes being coming soon. So I can add them here, or I can go over here and click on contacts here. Documents is the same thing. I've got some new documents. They got sent or saved on my computer. I can go to documents here. I can go to the plus sign here and add documents, or I can go here and add documents. And so you can manage your entire transaction once you're finished with it from this screen. And to get back to this screen when you're not in, I'll go up here to the hamburger and click on the main dashboard. Here is that first screen when we first logged in. Here are all my transactions. They're usually organized by how recent they are being used. Here's forms that I've used recently. And I can click on Paul McCartney's house, and now I'm back in his transaction. I had suggested, and I hope someday they make this background a slightly different color so that it's easier to visualize. But here's all the things that we just looked at to manage transactions. And what I will tell you is if you go in here and create 3 fake transactions, and even find somebody to make believe they're your customer and client, or another agent and let them make you a customer and client so you can experience both ends and you play with it and experiment, this process will become routine for you very, very quickly. Any questions? All right, since you all were so nice and faithful coming to the class, I'm going to give you a little extra tip. We have a couple of extra minutes that not very many people know about, and it's the other really cool thing in here, okay? So don't tell anybody. Keep it to yourself. Now you can tell everybody if you want to. But down here in Documents, if I go into Documents here or I go into Documents here, I'm now back in that Documents, and there's all the documents we added. And I can click here to add more documents, but watch what happens this time. When I hover over it, can you all see what that little black square says? It says add documents / folders. You can only do this once you've already created a transaction. But if I click there, I can create folders inside my folders. Think about how cool that is for organizing things. Now, you can't automatically send things into each one of the folders you create. You would have to go in and move them into those folders. But how might you use this? Well, in a listing, remember I said you could keep all your pictures in here? I could create a pictures folder. In a contract, I could create a folder for all the contract and addendum paperwork. Another folder for all the inspection report paperwork, another folder for all the correspondence, another folder for all the mortgage stuff, and then put everything in those folders. If you've ever seen an agent's real paper file get to be about 2 inches thick and watch them go through that file looking for one sheet of paper that just happened to get stuck to the back of another sheet of paper, you'll understand how useful creating folders inside your folders can be. And one of the things, once you get used to doing that and you want to go to the next level, is back there in templates. If you are always creating the 5 or 6 folders, you can make it part of your template. And when you get in, those folders will already exist. But for now, you can go here and add folders inside your documents folder and organize yourself even better than just simply dumping all of your paperwork in there and hoping to find it later. So I think that's pretty cool. That's a feature they've had for a couple of years. Again, it's not one a lot of people know about because you don't get to see it until you've done it. So any last quick questions for today? Well, all right then. Your homework is to do 3 or 4 fake transactions, hook up with somebody. Call me if you have any questions or you get stuck on anything. I'm available and I will help you as much as I possibly can. So you all have a good rest of the day and thank you for being in class today.
Thanks,
And
John.
be safe.
Thank you, John.
Much. This
Have
is
a good
great.
day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.